Hi folks, I posted a video last week about VocoScreen NG, which is a screencasting creator or screen recorder type app which shows you this sort of mouse control, the click, and then things like the magnifier that you can put up on the screen. So this is obviously used by lots of people producing especially tutorial type videos, or where they're recording the screen. And I got some good feedback about that video. But what was interesting to me just afterwards is I was just looking at a few things on my Linux desktop, and I realized that, a lot of desktops, like Windows and Mac as well, and as well as Linux, the desktop managers have actually got compositor screens, and it's probably worth just having a look, for example, on this website. If you're not familiar with compositors, it's this type of effect you get when you say Alt-Tab and you're going to change between applications. One of these is like a cube effect where you can see different screens or different applications on the different sides, and as you Alt-Tab, it spins around and you select what you want, and there you go. But they do describe here quite nicely also what a compositor is. And essentially, without the compositor, you'll have a fairly flat desktop. You'll have windows, colors, mouse, all that sort of thing. But what you're not going to have is shadow effects, wobbly windows, magnifiers, that sort of thing. So the purpose of today's video really is just to briefly explain that some of these things are actually built into many of our operating systems already. So you can use really any screen recorder. It doesn't need to have a lot of this functionality if your desktop has already got the functionality built in. Then you may just want to have a look and see how it works. So I will show you on KDE. I'm using KDE Plasma as my desktop on Linux, where to find these things. And they've got some amazing options for different effects, some of them which are community produced. So it's not the standard things you get. Just bear in mind, of course, as well, what that often means is that you can introduce some instability as well. So I have heard, for example, that people say on KDE that with the forced blur effect, it can clash with one of the other effects. So, just bear that in mind. So really what's happening here is that you've got the basic desktop in the background, and then there's a buffer that's rendered in front of that, and everything passes through the compositor and it gets displayed in that buffer. So you can draw on the screen, have magnification and those type of effects. As they show here, Windows has already had a compositor present since Vista. Mac has also got. The difference with Linux is it depends on your desktop GUI that you're using. So for GNOME, there's some stuff. KDE, which I'll show you just now quickly, has got its effects, and XFCE and so on. I think Compos is one of the very popular ones. Compton I've not come into contact with really. So let me just turn off the VocoScreen effects first of all. Okay, so those are off. If I click now on the desktop, nothing's happening. So let me just call up the settings from KDE just to show you where those settings are. So typically with KDE, this is what your settings app is going to look like. And what you want to have a look at really is to go to the desktop effects. Sometimes it's easier to search for effects. I think there's too many desktop things. So there you'll see desktop effects. The little orange icon there, by the way, just indicates that there's something I've changed from the default. It's just if you're troubleshooting and so on. And maybe it's also worth just checking there the compositor. I've got compositor activated on startup. There's a couple of settings here that you can choose for just indicating how it will work or handle certain activities. For example, latency. Remember, it's drawing on top of the screen drawing, so there's a little bit of extra processing involved. Let me just go back. Desktop effects. So this is the list of desktop effects that I've got on KDE. You'll see I've got the looking glass at the moment is the one that I've got active. I've got the fisheye lens activated. So you could click over there and see, get an idea of what it does. You can get a preview before you actually select it. And then the other thing over here is you can also select the shortcut keys to activate it. So I've got the Meta, which is the Windows key on some of the machines. Meta 0 to go back to actual size. I've got the zoom in and I've got the zoom out. So for example, mine is active. So if I go to Meta Plus, you'll see there now it's starting to zoom in more. And as I move around, well, obviously you can zoom it as much as you want, really, but that's the magnification effect that you could choose if you wanted to use it on your videos, and you could just go minus again to go out, or the 0 just to drop it back to where it was. That was the looking glass one. Then there's a more traditional sort of magnification as well. So I'd have to select it over there, oops, and just say apply. I think the shortcut keys were the same. So there you go. And it actually works a little bit smoother than Voco screens, you know, as far as I understand. I suppose because it is building in with the OS. You could carry on zooming in. So it's quite nice and easy and quick sort of to adjust the magnification. Alt 0. I'll just go back to that one. There's obviously a whole lot here. This one is to magnify the entire desktop. You're not going to see that sort of magnification effect. And then we've got also one or two other interesting features that, for example, Voco Screen doesn't have. And if I just go down, there's a good, you'll see obviously there's a lot of effects here. Aperture, fade desktop. Oh, I'm going to have to search here. Mouse mark. Okay, so for example, there's the mouse mark. You can draw lines on the desktop or the screen. And basically how I do it is it's meta shift. And as I'm moving my mouse around, I can basically draw things like that. And you can carry on drawing. You can leave it on the screen while you carry on with your video or whatever you're doing. And if you want to get rid of it, it was Meta Shift F12, I think. Oh, that was actually undo. But essentially, that's a very nice feature, again, that, like I said, some of the screen recorders don't actually have. And then the other ones that I don't have active while I'm obviously working is things like track mouse and the mouse click animation. So these are going to be the same as we saw with Voco Screen. Just to check though, track the mouse will be Control-Alt-M is the shortcut. So if I go Control-Alt-M, you'll see there is my tracking the mouse cursor option. The only thing here is I don't know that there's any settings you can change on this. So, you know, there again, Voco Screen has got a couple of options. You can change the color and a few other things, and I'm not actually seeing that here. Obviously, there are other effects, so you could choose as well. Then on the animation side, that will be now where you're clicking. You'll see there's no animation at the moment, but here you can choose some colors I see, and depending on which, you can also choose a different color for the different clicks, which is pretty handy actually. You don't actually have that on Voco Screen. It is the Meta and the star key. And it's got a good couple of other options here as well that you can set. So it's Meta and star key. So if I click now left there, you can see the red. If I click with the middle button, you can see a green color. And if I right click, you'll see the blue color there briefly. Obviously these you can adjust and change those colors at least. So that's really the settings there that you can change. As I said, I think, you know, it's really a question of just playing around and exploring a little bit, because there's a ton of effects. You can go here to get new screen effects. So it's going to depend on your desktop and what compositor you're using, but it's probably well worth just exploring. As they warn you here, it might not have been reviewed and these could be not 100% stable. The rubber band. You'll see I've got, I think, the wobbly effect. You see if I move my window, there's the wobbly effect I've got on for Windows already as well. So yeah, there are a couple others, and you can contribute your own as well down here at the bottom. So yeah, desktop effects. So that's really it. I just wanted to show that, as I said, the the desktop effects that you've got on your operating system could be of quite a bit of use. And it's not just for obviously creating your videos. Most cases we tend to use the desktop effects just for normal use, like Alt Tab and the general desktop effects and wobbly windows and that sort of thing. But some of these can be very useful as well to video creators, I think, especially if you're on the Linux side. So I hope you found that interesting, and yeah, keep well out there, and I'll see you in my next video.